Tonight we're uncorking some fresh polling data for all y'all because the political world has now already guzzled down those new general election head-to-head, dead heat matchup numbers between Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton that came out over the weekend. The new digits also show astronomical unfavorable ratings for both Hillary Clinton and Donald J. Trump, billionaire, in a race that is, again, essentially now tied. One poll from NBC News and the Wall Street Journal found Clinton leading Trump 46 to 43%. That is an 8-point swing towards Trump since April. The other survey that got a lot of attention from ABC News and the Washington Post has Trump leading Clinton in a head-to-head matchup, 46 to 44%. That is an 11-point swing in Trump's direction since March. Both of these surveys, of course, show the two candidates within the margin of error. There's a lot in them beyond the horse race to sift through. So, John, let's start with Donald Trump. What are the most heartening and the most troubling numbers for Trump in these two polls?
Well, I'm going to come back to a particular thing in a moment, but let's just say this. The overall, the most heartening thing for Donald Trump is that Republicans have come home and that as of today, he's in basically the same place that Mitt Romney was on Election Day in 2012. The most troubling thing for him is that he's in the same place that Mitt Romney was on Election Day in 2012, which is to say, Mitt Romney got wiped out in 2012 in terms of the Electoral College. So, but Trump, given everything that's happened, all the predictions of gloom and doom, all the predictions of Republicans not supporting Trump, if I were him, I'd be happy with that, but I'd still know that I got a lot of work to do.
Two things I think are heartening for him. One is the fact that despite him losing to Clinton on a series of traits, he is even with her, which puts alive the notion that he has to radically improve his numbers in terms of traits in order to have a chance to win. The other thing that I think is incredibly heartening for him is the meta thing, which is now Republicans think he can win.
Yes, very important.
And the lead with independents is what Romney had, which is incredibly important. But if he can be even and leading with independents, that is heartening. On the downside for Trump, I think the fact that his numbers have improved, his standing has improved in some of these traits, but he's still behind is maybe a little bit bad for him. And he does lose into a lot of traits. And so where he's behind in traits, Clinton can use that to leverage people thinking, that she's better on foreign policy, that she's better on a range of issues where, he'd rather be stronger. But overall, I'd say more good news for Trump here than bad news.
Way more good news than bad news. And look, the bottom line, though, is that still with non-white voters, he's still in as bad a place. Just to go a little further on what I said before, he's as bad with non-white voters and in a lot of trouble still with women. It's not as bad as you might have thought with women, but on the non-white voter thing, he still either has to really move the needle on white voters, or he's going to have to fix some of those problems with non-white voters, or he's going to end up in the same place that Romney was. And as the party acknowledged back in 2012, you can't win a general election with those kind of numbers.
But what we see here clearly is that Trump he doesn't have to revolutionize what Romney did with non-white voters. If he continues to dominate with white voters and male voters so extensively, continues to do it with older voters, continues to do it with independents, this could be the last election where Republicans don't need to make substantial progress. Right. They need to make some with non-white voters, the coalition of the ascendant, to win.
Now let me go to my bugbear issue, which is Donald Trump's taxes, an issue that I have said before we must make him pay a price for. This poll shows that it's a real problem for him. He, as you pointed out, not releasing his tax returns. This poll shows independent voters, where a huge part of why he's ahead of Clinton or even with or within the margin of error is that he's doing very well with independents. 60% of independents said that Trump should release his tax returns, and a vast majority of those say it's really important to them. 44% of Republicans say that Trump should release his tax returns. I agree.
I agree he should, but I don't know that those numbers are high enough to make him do it.
It's a vulnerability, Mr. Trump. You really ought to do this for a lot of reasons. All right, most people have been focusing on the Trump-tastic top-line numbers in those polls today. But below the surface, the data were not entirely 100% gloomy and doomy for Hillary Clinton. One potential source of optimism, politically speaking, for HRC, a majority of people had a positive view of President Obama. His approval rating was 51% in the ABC Washington Post poll. So, Mark, to the extent that there is any good news for Hillary Clinton, let's have the same question we had on Trump. What are the best news in this poll for Hillary Clinton and the most troubling signs in these polls for Hillary Clinton?
Well, one piece of good news, President Obama's approval rating just above 50%, as it's been now in several polls, ticking up. If he's above 50%, given that she's running on continuity, that's very good for her. And as I said before, she leads with a lot of traits. Dealing with issues of concern to women, she dominates. Handling foreign policy, she dominates. Looking out for the middle class, being a good commander-in-chief. She leads in all those either by a lot or by a lot. And I think the reality for her is, this is good news. It's a wake-up call. You know, a lot of Democrats said, yeah, when the Clinton campaign says this is going to be a tight race, it's a divided country, a lot of people didn't believe it. I sense now in the Clinton campaign a greater sense of urgency and an ability to raise money and rally support, which they didn't have before. So the fact that they got a wake-up call this early is good for them.
To me, yes, I think that's right. The mirror image of your point before, the meta point about how this is good for Trump because it shows that he's in the race, it's also good for her because it shows that he's in the race. People will say that's not true. It's obviously true. The biggest problem back in 2012 for the Obama campaign was donors and others thinking, oh, this is in the bag against Romney, and people not being willing to write checks to the super PACs. People will now see Trump coming and say, hey, we got to help Hillary Clinton. And I think once she gets past the Sanders thing, Democrats are going to be more likely to come home if they're afraid Trump can win than if they think that she's got a huge insurmountable lead against Trump. But again, across the board, a lot of troubling signs here. She's not nearly as far ahead with women as she should be in any conventional analysis. And as you said before, it's the flip side. You know, some of those things that to see Trump this close, not having to revolutionize the race, that tells you guys she got a lot of work to do too.
Yeah.